today's lesson, you are going to learn the prefixes se para. Please add se para to the table of contents in your vocabulary section of your 5-subject notebook. Then turn to the next blank page. Add se para as your heading and tape in the graphic organizer. Please be sure you tape in your graphic organizer. Last week, I noticed a lot of you without it taped in. That only increases your chances of losing your graphic organizer. Once you have done these things, please restart the video. We are going to look at 4 words that contain the prefix se para: separate, segregate, paramedic, and parallelogram. As we are looking at these words, I'd like for you to think about what they have in common with one another. The first definition is to keep some things apart from other things. When we keep things apart, we are often separating the items. Someone who works in emergency healthcare aside or by the side of other healthcare workers. We call these people paramedics. To set groups of people apart from others. When we do this, we segregate people. A 4-sided figure in which 2 lines run aside or by the side of each other. You may recognize this word from math class. It is a parallelogram. Now, looking at these words, what do they have in common with one another? You may recognize that separate has something to do with keeping things apart. Paramedic has something to do with working aside or beside somebody else. When you segregate, you put things apart from one another. And with a parallelogram, the lines are aside or run to the side of each other. Based on this information, what do you think se para means? If you said apart, aside, then you were correct. What you now need to do is add se para to your graphic organizer, add your definition, and then add a picture to help you remember the meaning. When you have done that, please restart the video. We're now going to talk about 3 words that begin with the prefix se para that you're probably familiar with. You do not need to write these down on your graphic organizer. The first word is paragraph. We talk about paragraphs all the time in English class. Did you know that a paragraph was originally a special mark written in the margins aside a text on the page? Today, we still use this paragraph mark to show that a sentence needs to be indented and kept apart from the preceding text. We've done a lot of talking in the past few weeks about paragraphs and specifically when to start new paragraphs. We've been using this acronym of PATHS to help us remember to start a new paragraph. The P stands for place, A stands for action, T stands for time, and S stands for speaker. That means that every time that we have a new person, action, time, or speaker, that what we do is we indent the sentence and we put it apart from the rest of the text. Another word that you're probably pretty familiar with is the word parasite. Can you think of anything that has had a parasite? You may think of a dog or a cat. Typically, a dog or a cat may have something like a flea. A parasite is an organism that feeds off the side of the host organism. And finally, the word separate. Did you know that separate is the most commonly misspelled word in the English language? That's because most people often spell separate as S-E-P-E-R-A-T-E. Now, we know that se para means apart, aside. So using our knowledge of se para, we know that you are going to correctly spell separate, S-E-P-A-R-A-T-E. Also, we know that when you separate, you are keeping things apart from one another. We are now going to go over 4 words that also use the prefixes se para. You need to write these 4 words in your graphic organizer. The first word is the word seclude. Please add that to your graphic organizer. Knowing our knowledge of the prefix se para, which means apart, aside, and our context clues, let's see if we can figure out the meaning of the word seclude. Since the garden contained award-winning roses, they secluded the garden from the rest of the property. Well, using my knowledge of Se Para, it seems like the garden is away or apart from the rest of the property. So I'm going to infer that Se Para has something to do with being apart from other, or excuse me, that seclude has something to do with being apart. So yes, seclude means to isolate, shut off, or to keep apart. Please add that definition to your graphic organizer. The next word is paradox. Please add paradox to your graphic organizer. Here are 3 examples of paradox. I always lie, less is more, and you must be cruel to be kind. Can you figure out how those words or those phrases may be paradoxes? If you say you always lie, are you lying or are you telling the truth? And how can you say less is more? If you have less, then how do you have more? And how can you be kind to somebody if you're actually being cruel? Here's another example of a paradox. I have found the paradox that if you love until it hurts, there can be no more hurt, only more love. Is it possible to love until it hurts, and then when you do that, there's no more hurt, but only love? Those ideas don't seem to make sense with one another. Do you have an idea of what a paradox is? A paradox is a statement that goes against common sense, but still may be true, or a contradiction. So, a paradox goes aside what we would believe. Your next word is succeed. Please write this in your graphic organizer. In 1860, South Carolina was the first state to secede from the Union. Well, I know Se Para has something to do with apart, aside, and I can see here that South Carolina was the first to do this from the Union. So I'm making the assumption that they probably went apart. As I look at this picture, I can also see that they declared independence. I know that when people are independent, they are usually alone or by themselves. So secede means to withdraw or to break away from a group. Please add this definition to your graphic organizer. Your final word is paranoid. Please add this to your graphic organizer. I felt paranoid, so I kept glancing over my shoulder as I walked through the busy mall. Well, I know that Se Para has something to do with being apart or aside. And if this person is glancing over their shoulder, they must feel like maybe something's wrong. As I look at this picture, I get the feeling that this person may be worried or distrusting. Usually, if I'm glancing over my shoulder, I feel worried or I am distrusting. Your definition of paranoid is being overly suspicious or distrustful. This means that you are usually apart from reality. Please add this definition to your graphic organizer. You are now done with your vocab lesson. You may read independently or continue to work on your narrative. In this lesson, there is one compound sentence. If you can find the compound sentence, identify the independent clauses and your coordinating conjunction, and you can show me after class, I will have something for you.